I throw it out to the audience. Can you come up to the mic? Because that would be a little easier.
So I have a class this semester. I teach in the American English Language Program, just to put a little frame around it. And my class is basically a writing class where students learn how to write a paragraph, more or less. And at the start of the semester, I had rather a shock. I always ask my students, did you graduate from high school in the United States? And I went through the forms, and everybody said yes. Just about everybody. I think about 13 out of 16 students graduated from Montgomery High School. And I have been tempted, Dr. Pollard, to invite you to this class.
Please do.
Because,
I'm serious.
and I guess my question is, we have to see these students. Why are we not seeing them? And I don't want to get emotional, but I'm not sure if I can pull them through. You know, because it's a bigger issue than myself. And so I guess my question to you is, how can we see them and what can we do to serve them better? Because I don't think this is rare. I think this is happening a lot.
I'll talk, and I'm hopeful that other people will chime in on this. It was interesting. I remember doing a teacher research project when I was at the College of Lake County. We received a grant, and we were afforded some release time as a group to do a teacher research project. And I was teaching composition. I was right out of, probably 3 years out of my master's program. And as you know, you teach composition, lit, and you reconciling in my mind what I'd learned with the folks I'm looking at and who I'm working with. And I remember my teacher research project was, I see you, I see myself. I remember that was the title of it. Because my suggestion is that how could I possibly help those students move to where they needed to go? And this is lowest level developmental writing class. We had separate reading and writing classes, then we integrated them, then we separated them again. But at this point, I'm having these students, and part of it was agency and voice. Because I had to realize, for me, I didn't have and would not have the opportunity to transform them individually. But what I really wanted to figure out how to do is how to empower them to help transform their own lives. And I know that sounds so esoteric to a certain extent, but so therefore I changed my approach to how I taught that class, and that we had this great reader that we would use and had these lovely stories about freedom and independence and democracy and all of that. But how do we translate that into your real life situation? So I actually started having them bring in examples of things they're working on. My landlord wants me to do X, Y, or Z, and I need to tell him I can't or whatever. And I changed, because part of my job, I thought, if I see you, I know that you don't fit into the profile of what we think a college student is. You didn't fit into, TESOL 567 that I took as a graduate student, because this is real stuff right here, right? So I had to figure out, for me, the only way that I could truly help them get to a level that would help them, I think, feel successful and me feel successful working with them, is to change the context for how I chose to taught that class. That's just my experience. I would love to come and listen to them tell their stories and to figure out how to help them find agency in their lives with that.
And why are we getting it?
Well, and I want to actually, that's the point I want to talk to. In your question, there's a sense of, there's the word readiness. There's the why. How did they get to this stage, this level, without things that I feel are necessary, without them being ready? And I think it has to do with the fact that maybe it's just human nature, we love categorization. We love levels. We like to measure. We don't like ambiguity. We don't like things when they're vague. What we like to be able to say is, you're in the first grade, you're in the second grade, you're in the third grade, you're in the fourth grade. You've checked these boxes, now you're ready. Well, that's not how things work. Ready is different for everybody. Are they ready? I think the fact that we have a system that is built to handle volume as opposed to individuals means that Students, when they've checked that box and we feel like, well, all the boxes are checked. They've made it through steps 1 through 10. Now, they must be ready for you. I think that's the system that has to be looked at much more thoughtfully, because we're not taking, and if Dr. Starr were here, he'd be telling you, he'd give you a speech about standardized tests, and he'd be right in a lot of ways, because we judge readiness based on a checklist, we judge it based on a score, we judge it based on that outcome, as opposed to what did they learn, what was the journey that they took to get there, and are they ready for it? And I think one of the things that Montgomery College will continue to be challenged by for the foreseeable future is that mass retrofit, the human retrofit that has to occur to address I'll say some of the flaws of the system. And
the other thing that I would offer to you, and I loved how you phrased your question about they have completed high school, right? For so long in this country, the narrative of higher education in this country, actually the education period, was two. One, that every generation would do better than the next generation, which we've seen is not the case. And the other narrative that we have is that high school graduation equals college ready, right? So what has really become the truth is that what'd you call that, unequal? Is that what it's called in the math, not equal? We need to put the line through it, because that's the reality. High school graduation does not equal college ready, and that, in theory, is what the Common Core and PARC is supposed to address. But there's a whole set of other issues that go around that as well.
And I struggled mightily my first few years in undergraduate, because I came out of this high school, this small rural high school in South Carolina, and beyond the culture shock of coming up to DC, I went to GW. There was a sense of, well, you graduated, you must be ready. And I was probably one of the few times ever that a white dude was used to fill out a quota of some sort. But I think they were looking for random kids from rural South Carolina high school to go to GW, because there weren't a lot of kids from rural South Carolina high schools applying to GW. So they were probably looking down a list and it's like, all right, that kid, we'll check the box and we'll let him in.
We're diverse.
We're diverse now. We've got some bumpkin from the South. So I show up, as country mouse, and I was not ready. It took a long time for that retrofit to occur.
So I know you probably want to go to another question, but I'm really drawn to when you said, I can't see them. And I don't know if it has this, and I know you weren't saying this, as much to do with your gaze as it is they're used to hiding out,
Yeah,
right?
I think
Right.
they were mixed.
Right.
Like somehow somebody did not see them.
Right.
That's my observation.
The second part of your comment that I was drawn to was that you don't know if you're going to be able to pull them through, right? And I just want to give you another paradigm, right? And so as the teacher, facilitator in the classroom, who clearly cares deeply for these learners, you feel this obligation to pull them through because you know what this system's all about, right? And that's good. But I want to invite you and maybe even the college to think about another operating system, them pulling themselves through, like together, right? And so what you saw in the circles, right? It's how can you get them to slow down long enough in this hyper warped society that we live in to have a deep and profound connection to what it is that they really want. Now, they might be, 18 something, 20 something, and may not be clear about that, but to start this process to move from struggle for a moment to aspiration. And for them in the classroom, maybe your role is to facilitate how they connect to each other and their stories, and how they support each other and hold each other accountable to achieving that thing, so that they're pulling themselves through as a group rather than you having to do all the pulling. So we've seen it work over and over and over again, the agency coming from the group rather than one person pulling from the front. Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying this a lot. My question is really a springboard from what she's talking about, what you've just mentioned, this gap. We may call it educational gap. Not everyone is wired to study and to read and write, but we do know that some of those very students have mechanical capabilities. When we talk about making things, fixing things, building things, automotive. And I think anyone in this room right now would be saying, I'd love to find an honest mechanic, an honest plumber. So my question is, what is Montgomery College doing about filling that gap of automotive skills that are honorable and that can provide a living wage to support a family?
I'll let Dr. Pollard talk about what MC is doing, but I think it starts off by we have to value all work. We have to value everybody's time. We have to respect the fact that just because someone in high school gravitates towards building things, just because they enjoy wood shop and automotive class or the culinary arts, just because they enjoy that more, that's their interest. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden, they're not four-year college. They're not ready in our definition of ready. I think we have to put more value on those skills or the methods of learning that are hand-on. Because, like I was saying, it's not that they, those 5 words, smart, they're all smart enough to be happy. They're all smart enough to follow an aspiration. We got to value what that aspiration is.
So the college does a lot in this space. One of the things that, so there's two, let me provide a context I think is important. Susan, what's the word you use to describe Montgomery County? I'm just like putting you on. It's the guy off the radio, Lake Wobegon. So we have this Montgomery County mystique that every kid is graduating from high school, they're all going to the Ivy League, they're all going to come back and work in Congress, then they're going to go and work at whatever, become attorneys, make millions of dollars, and live in Montgomery County, right? We kind of have this mindset, and they're all gifted and talented too. Don't forget that, right? So we've crafted this is the Montgomery County narrative, right? But the reality about that is exactly the point that we have to kind of unpack. I wish Ed Roberts were here. I don't think he is. He would tell this story about how he was in a different setting and had some of his automotive technology students who are graduates of our program come in and talk about the fact their starting salary was $50,000, $60,000 a year, and they were talking, I think, to a nonprofit group, and they were all, wait a minute, you know what? How do you get into that, right? So our Godelski Institute, 55,000 square foot, I only know that because I had to read it today for something else, 55,000 square foot facility that has automotive technology, welding, construction management, a whole slew of programs in that, but it comes back to this idea of what we think about what it means to go to college, right? What it means about the fact of how we value different types of work. You're right. I always tell my grandfather, God bless his soul, was, he died at 99. He said, here's the thing, every family should have these 5 things in it. He said, he said, somebody's in the medical profession, and he didn't say doctor. He said, you really want a nurse, baby. You want to get a nurse in the family. You need to have somebody who knows something about the law. He said, and I really think you need to get them paralegals. That's what he would always say. He wouldn't say the attorney, right? Because he said, you need to have a good plumber in the family. You need to have a person who can fix your car in the family, right? He said, and you need to have somebody who can do all the talking in the family, right? So he had the whole thing broke down about what every family needed to have and how he was ready to. The idea is how, though, we define what the work is. Because at the end of the day, if we're all living in Lake Wobegon, we're all going to the Ivy League, and we're all going to do X, Y, or Z, we are missing the fact that that is not the reality. 60% of Montgomery County students, Montgomery County MCPS students who stay in state come to Montgomery College at some point in their career. 60%. That's not the narrative, right? Our yield rate, 25% of MCPS graduates. Every high school in Montgomery County has Montgomery students who go to Montgomery College, who graduated this past spring, are enrolled this fall. Not the narrative. So part of what I think we have to do is raise the counter narrative. Yep. Now, if you talk about critical race theory, right, they talk about the dominant idiom and the dominant narrative. You have to really raise the counter narrative. The counter narrative is that all work is valued. and every member of society needs a job. Let's get real about that. And the work that they do contributes to the greater whole. And we all have a role that we play in that. There's only one Montgomery College president, contrary to what some people think. There's one president, right? Right? One president. If you all want to be a college president, you're not going to be able to stay in Montgomery County, right? So you got to have a serious conversation about the work that we need and have here and the value that everyone plays in that space.
Okay, how are you going to do that?
Huh?
How are you going to do that?
Well, those of you, some of y'all don't know, I do it all the time. So this is the part
Slowly,
but you have to be willing to have the conversation. So there's the other part about us as a county. We like things nice. We sure do. Right? So you can ruffle the feathers just a little bit, but every once in a while people kind of rein me back in. So I talk about the fact that we are browner, older, and less wealthy as a county. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the graduates and where they're really going. Let's talk about the fact that one of our largest programs, our Godelsky Institute, serves thousands of students each year, short-term and long-term. Let's talk about apprenticeship. Let's talk about cybersecurity, where you have a whole pathway that goes from short-term courses to degrees. It's putting the truth out there. At least that's what I'm trying to do. And I need all of us to be doing it together.
What if you had, Doc, since you and the faculty and administrators have somewhat control over what happens here, right? The college is in a larger context. But what if you made meaning making and narrative as a part of being a student here at Montgomery College? And because the narrative, the meta narrative that you're trying to get to is embedded in the real lives of the students who are coming here.
That's what Gwen's been talking. Instead of us, we have this whole work around closing the achievement gap, and we're working. But she said, how are we engaging students around this? Having students talk about the achievement gap and doing it themselves. So these are part of the issues that we have to grapple with. It's more than just what we have traditionally been thinking about and getting other folks to help tell their own stories.
That, I think, will conclude our program. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank you for the great questions. And I ask you to join me in thanking our speakers for their great insights and their time.